If you're growing passion fruit for the first time and are wondering why your fruits are dropping off of the vine prematurely before they even have a chance to fully ripen, then this video will go over 6 reasons why that might be happening to your vine. As you can see, it's happening to mine. The very first reason why this might be happening is because passion fruit naturally produces more fruit than the vine can actually support. It'll drop some of the more immature fruits on the vine so that it can focus its energy on the larger, more mature fruits. The second most obvious reason would be the age of the vine. So newly planted vines or younger vines tend to abort their fruits early because it's just not mature enough to support all of that fruit production. And if you're like me and you're overly enthusiastic about the fruits on your vine and you decide to hand pollinate every single flower, it will set fruit. But we are overtaxing this young vine. It really cannot sustain all of that fruit, especially at such a young age. So you can almost guarantee that it will drop a lot of its fruit prematurely. It will still focus on some of those more mature fruits. Hopefully you don't lose all of them, but it just can't handle so many fruits for such a young vine. Reason number 3 could be environmental stresses. So extreme temperature fluctuations where it goes from really hot to fairly cold overnight. Like where I am here in Florida, the weather can be a little weird, especially in the springtime. If you experience these extreme weather temperature fluctuations, that might be a reason why it's dropping the fruit. So it's temporary, no need to worry. These vines produce prolifically, so we just have to get through this fluctuation. But the other environmental stressor is around watering and inconsistent watering. So in the springtime, we experience very significant drought. These vines like consistent watering, not a heavy downpour right now and then a week later another downpour. They like consistent water. So they don't like to be completely waterlogged, but they also don't like to go completely dry for extended periods of time. So the soil ideally should stay moist consistently. And if you don't have any irrigation set up for this vine and you're hand watering like I have to, you're most likely not giving it enough water as frequently as it needs. For me, it would be so much easier if I just had this vine to worry about. I can come out here and water daily and make sure that it has enough moisture in the soil around the roots. But it really is a challenge for me because I have about 30 different fruiting trees and vines and shrubs that need my attention, especially in the springtime. And it takes me literally an hour and a half to water everything by hand. I really do need to set up drip irrigation. And we all know life gets busy, especially during the holidays. And if you have little ones, full-time jobs, it gets pretty chaotic. So the watering can get away from us, as it did in my situation. Now, on the flip side of that, it can also be due to excess water. So in the summertime, we get monsoon rains. It rains almost every single day in the summer here in Florida. So it can also just be due to overwatering, and that could also be your case, whether you're manually watering or like ours where it just monsoon rains, which should be temporary, so nothing to worry about long term unless you live in the rainforest. Just make sure that it has enough good, well draining soil. It's not sitting in soil that is holding too much water. A well draining, sandy, loamy soil is key. Fourth reason could be the soil pH. So these vines do pretty good with soil pH ranges from 5.5 all the way to 7.5, but their sweet spot is anywhere from a 6.5 to a 7. If your soil is too alkaline, you may want to amend the soil to bring down that pH a bit to give the soil a little bit more acidity. And if you're really unsure, you can test your own soil with certain kits that they sell or get it professionally tested by sending a sample over, or you can experiment and take cuttings of this vine. So it's really easy to propagate passion fruit. I've done it a couple of ways. I've taken cuttings from the vine and rooted them in water first, but I've also rooted them directly in the soil, and they do great rooted directly in the soil, just as nature usually intends. So you can try that. Sometimes it's really as simple as planting it somewhere else, seeing which one does better, seeing if you have any issues in that second location, and then removing the first vine if it's not producing well for you. Let's say it's a mature vine, you've had it for well over a year or two, and it's still dropping all of its fruit. Could be that it doesn't like its location, or it could also be that it is not self-fertile. It may need pollen from a different variety, which a lot of the yellow varieties or the large giant passion fruit varieties tend to need. So try propagating and growing it somewhere different if you can, if you have the space, and see if that works out. The fifth reason could be due to nutrient deficiencies. So this one here is, I wouldn't say controversial, but some people grow their vines successfully without ever fertilizing it. I know that's the case with a lot of people in Puerto Rico, where I'm from. They never fertilize their vines and they grow just fine. Could be that the soil provides everything that it needs. Really just depends on the soil that you have. In my case here in Florida, we have very sandy soil that is depleted in a lot of nutrients. So it's generally a good idea to give it a nice balanced fertilizer, something that has an NPK of 10-10-10 or even 8-3-9. Passion fruit vines are generally heavy feeders, especially during the flowering and fruiting stages. So you may want to try giving it some nutrients if you haven't already done so. In my opinion, going organic is the way to go because there's less chance of you harming the plant by giving it too much fertilizer. The organic fertilizers are generally more forgiving, they're slow release, and they generally won't burn your plants or harm the plants if you overdo it accidentally. It would also be beneficial to give them secondary nutrients like magnesium and sulfur, and even micronutrients like boron, nickel, copper, zinc, iron, manganese, things like that. The final reason that I can think of would be pest and disease pressure. So looking at the leaves, examining them closely is very telling. Just look to see if you have an aphid infestation or any other pest attacking the leaves or flowers. Also check the color of the leaves. If there are a lot of discolored leaves, leaves that are really spotty or curled up, maybe you have a lot of leaves that are dropping, they just don't look healthy, that can be a little easier to diagnose. You can go online, do a little bit of research. This really just depends on what the actual issue is, whether it's disease or a certain pest. There can be so many different reasons, but the leaves are usually very telling and easier to dive a little deeper and try to diagnose it at that point. Now, sometimes it's not easy to tell, especially if the problem is with root knot nematodes. Now, the purple varieties tend to get attacked more from root knot nematodes, and root knot nematodes are all over the place here, unfortunately. Those little microscopic wormy things will bore into the roots and they'll start eating the roots, multiplying, and then you have these big knotty roots that are just infested with these root knot nematodes. The yellow varieties don't seem to get attacked as much by the root knot nematodes as the purple varieties, and I'm growing purple. It's self-fertile. It doesn't require cross-pollination with a different vine or a different variety. So it's a lot easier for me to grow this on my property, especially due to the space as well, since these vines take up so much space. And this one's kind of tough because you may not even know that you have this issue until you actually dig up around the roots or even pull the whole vine up. And I just don't want to do that. So one of the best prevention measures that I personally will be taking is to take the marigolds that I'm growing and chop them up and bury them into the soil around the vine's roots. Marigolds carry a chemical compound in the plant material itself, so the leaves and the flowers, that will deter or keep those root knot nematodes away. And in one of my videos, I did mention that planting marigolds around certain plants that are susceptible to root knot nematode would help keep them away. But that was actually my mistake because the root knot nematodes are in the soil and the roots of these marigolds don't carry as much of that chemical compound. So it's not as effective as if you were to bury the leaves and the flowers into the actual soil where the chemical compound is more present in higher concentrations. Now, there's something else that you can grow that carries these chemical compounds that do keep these root knot nematodes away, and that is sun hemp. So if you have the space for it, it's highly recommended to go ahead and get this planted. It makes for excellent green manure as a chop and drop. Just chop it down and drop it around any plant that you're growing. It will help feed that plant, but also that chop and drop and burying it into the soil around your plants that are susceptible to root knot nematodes, like our purple passion fruit, for instance, or fruiting trees like figs. It'll really help keep those tiny little destructive wormies away. This is one of my fruits that dropped prematurely. And excuse my mess over here. This is my little gardening station, and I've got a lot of to-dos as I wave this knife around. If you're wondering whether a passion fruit will ripen off of the vine, let's say that it fell prematurely, it's still green, and you're wondering if it's going to ripen off of the vine. Maybe, but most likely not. However, we want to cut into it to examine the pulp to see if it's still edible, depending on if the pulp is juicy and not dried and weird. Quick disclaimer though, some unripe passion fruit, especially if very unripe, can contain high amounts of cyanide, so it's not generally safe to eat, especially in high amounts. Do your own research, check the variety that you have, and make your own informed choice what you want to do with these unripe fruits. In my case, there's a lot of pulp in here. It's juicy. If it were to be dried up, because it's just very unripe, then I wouldn't even touch it. So that's my disclaimer to you. This one fell when it was green, and it's been off of the vine for about 2-3 days now. So you can see that it's already turned purple. I'm gonna go ahead and cut into this to show you what it looks like. Look at that. Oh my God. It's a little on the sour side, but it's also sweet. And it tastes just like the beautiful passion fruit that we all know and love. And if you're watching this video, I'm sure you know what passion fruit tastes like, because you're either already growing it, you've tried the fruit, you've tried the juice. This is so good. I can even bring this inside, blend it up with a little bit of water and sugar, strain it, and still enjoy it. So it's not all lost. This is another one that dropped while it was green, and it's been off of the vine for same amount of days, but it has not changed its color very much. I doubt this one's going to be as juicy as the one I just opened, but we can try it anyway. Surprisingly juicy, with an even sweeter flavor than the purple one that I just opened. So if you're experiencing fruit dropping early on your passion fruit vines, no worries, it's most likely just temporary. I really wish it was just as easy as here's the reason why and here's how to fix it, but sometimes we have to just diagnose what's wrong with our plants, what's going on, and kind of just drill it down to the main reason or two why this is happening. So I really hope this video was helpful. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you have any other reasons as to why this may have happened to your vines, or maybe you know of other reasons. It would really help me out, as well as anyone else that might be reading the comments, to try to diagnose the issues with their vines. Thankfully, once these vines mature a bit, they will produce so many more fruits than you'll know what to do with. So just hang in there, don't give up, keep on growing, and I will see you on the next one. I gotta clean this mess up.